Every case generates questions, but some questions refuse to go away. In the aftermath of the murders at 1122 King Road, one of those questions has followed the case from the very beginning, just out of reach of the official story. Was someone else involved? Not in the same context that we've explored in our previous episode, but this time, looking at the possibility that someone from within their social circles, or within their personal lives, may have had some kind of involvement. Someone uncharged, unseen, unspoken. This theory exists not because of paranoia, but because of gaps. Gaps in time, gaps in statements, in silence. 4 students killed, 2 others unharmed, in a 3-story home, without neighbours hearing screams, and without any confirmed witnesses to the attack itself. A timeline with gaps. A crime scene destroyed before trial. 2 surviving roommates, one who saw a masked figure, but didn't call for help. And then there are whispers. Whispers of a Sigma Chi fraternity party earlier that night, of friends arriving before police, of vehicles seen near the house after the murders, but before the 911 call, of a father publicly stating his daughter's injuries were different, and refusing to stay silent. Some of these rumours stem from raw grief. Others may have originated in confusion or online speculation. But together, they point to a fundamental truth. People aren't convinced the full story has been told. The official narrative is focused. 1 man, 1 knife, 1 silent night. But what if that focus is too narrow? In this episode, we're not here to accuse. We're not here to name names. We're here to ask, could someone else have been in that house? Could someone else have known what was coming and stayed silent? Could this crime be tied to something bigger than personal rage? We'll examine verified timelines and missing ones. We'll explore the frat house rumours, the drug debt theory, and the possibility of a ritualistic or symbolic act. And we'll ask the one question that matters the most. If someone else was involved, would we ever know? This chapter won't answer every theory, but it will tell you why those theories exist. Because sometimes, the loudest alarm is the one no one ever triggered. Now before we begin, please remember this. What you're about to hear is not an accusation. It's not a declaration of fact. It's a careful, structured exploration of alternative theories that have emerged in the aftermath of this case. Theories that stem from public silence, timeline gaps, and details still sealed behind court orders. Everything presented in this episode is grounded in public speculation, not confirmed evidence. We've done our best to maintain factual accuracy where facts exist, and to clearly separate speculation from record where they do not. This episode explores questions that some have asked quietly, and others have shouted online. Our goal is not to provoke, but to understand. And while we may explore theories involving other individuals, we must make this absolutely clear. No one mentioned in this episode is accused of any wrongdoing. These are theories, not conclusions. Furthermore, Bryan Kohberger remains legally presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. With that in mind, let's begin. Every timeline begins before the crime, and in the case of the Idaho 4, that timeline passes through one specific place, the Sigma Chi fraternity house. Located just a short walk from 1122 King Road, Sigma Chi was a familiar setting for many students at the University of Idaho. On the night of November the 12th, 2022, just hours before the murders, Ethan Chapin and Zanika Note were reportedly seen attending a party there. It wasn't unusual. They were both well-liked, social, and deeply connected to campus life. But what has drawn interest and raised questions is what happened during and after that gathering. Who else was there? Who saw them leave? And was anyone else at that party connected, directly or indirectly, to what would unfold later that night? The official record has been relatively quiet about the party. No names have been released. No timeline has been confirmed by law enforcement. But online, rumours have filled the silence. Some claim that multiple fraternity brothers were present at the house earlier in the evening, and may have seen or interacted with Ethan and Xana before they returned to 1122 King Road. Others believe a confrontation may have occurred, a falling out, a misunderstanding, or worse, a message sent long after the lights went out. There's also the question of surveillance footage. Was anyone seen leaving the fraternity after Ethan and Xana? Were any unfamiliar vehicles spotted near the King Road in the early morning hours? To date, there's been no public disclosure of security footage from the party or the surrounding area, but some observers point to the tight-knit nature of the college social groups and wonder, could someone from the party have followed them? Could they have known the layout of the house? Could they have walked in and never been questioned? It's a theory that remains unproven, but it continues to gain attention because it's not unreasonable. Not when we consider the proximity, the timing, the silence. In a university town like Moscow, a short walk is all it takes for one world to cross into another. And on that night, Ethan and Xana left Sigma Chi alive. By morning, they were gone. What happened in between still isn't fully known, and what happened at that party might just hold the answers we haven't dared to ask. In a case fueled by facts, rumours can feel like poison, but in a case clouded by silence, rumours can often become the only thing left behind. From the earliest days of the Idaho 4 investigation, speculation has swirled around one particular detail. What, if anything, did the fraternities know? More specifically, what did the members of Sigma Chi, and possibly others, see, hear, or witness in the hours before and after the murders? It's a sensitive question, not because it implies guilt, but because it implies knowledge, the kind that might never have been shared. Online discussions, some now deleted, have suggested that fraternity members were seen near 1122 King Road in the early hours of November the 13th. Others claim that certain names circulated privately among students, and that people were warned, quietly, not to ask too many questions. Still, others pointed to odd behaviours at the vigil, or comments made online that seemed to suggest foreknowledge. To be clear, none of these claims have been confirmed. No official statements have named any Sigma Chi brothers as persons of interest. No surveillance footage has publicly placed them at the scene. And yet, the theory persists. Why? Because of the silence. To this day, very little has been shared about what happened between Ethan and Xana leaving the party and arriving home. No statements from witnesses at the gathering, no clarification on whether anyone walked with them, no response to whether any tips led investigators to Fraternity Row. And in the vacuum, a theory grew. That someone from the party may have followed them home, that a disagreement or dispute may have escalated, that someone involved chose silence, and stayed protected by the closeness of college culture. And again, this is speculation. But in a case where nearly everything is under seal, and where only one name has been officially charged, the lack of transparency invites alternative explanations. No theory should be accepted blindly, but no theory should be ignored simply because it makes people uncomfortable. Because if someone else was present that night, even unknowingly, then their silence has consequences. And if unverified sightings or whispered names are brushed aside without investigation, we risk protecting not a suspect, but a shadow, one that may be standing just outside the frame. Few voices in this case have been louder, more public, or more emotionally charged than Steve Goncalves, the father of Kaylee Goncalves, the vibrant, outspoken, fiercely loved young woman killed alongside her best friend Madison Mogan. Steve has made headlines from the beginning. He's criticized law enforcement, he's questioned the narrative, he's spoken openly about the condition of Kaylee's injuries, stating that they were different from the others, that she suffered more, that the killer may have had a personal focus. To some, Steve is a heartbroken father searching for justice by any means necessary. To others, he's a source of uncomfortable speculation, not because of anything he's done, but because of what has been said about him. One of the darker theories circulating online suggests that the murders may not have been about the students at all, but rather about a message, specifically a retaliation linked to an alleged drug debt not owed by Kaylee, but by her father. This theory posits that Kaylee's murder, and Madison's by proximity, was meant to send a warning, to settle a score, or to strike a blow against someone outside the house. There's no evidence in the public record supporting this theory, no criminal charges, no verified financial or drug-related ties. But the theory persists, fueled by Steve's visibility, his vocal distrust of authorities, and the fact that even he has questioned whether the official story is complete. To be clear, Steve Goncalves has never been accused of any wrongdoing. He is a grieving father, and one of the most relentless advocates for his daughter in this case. But in the world of true crime, where emotion and suspicion often blur, his presence in the media spotlight has made him a character in the public's reconstruction of the crime. And when someone speaks out as boldly as he has, they don't just challenge the narrative, they become part of it. Whether this theory holds any truth or is nothing more than internet conjecture remains unknown. But its existence points to something deeper, that some believe these murders weren't personal to the victims, but symbolic. A message, a punishment, a warning meant for someone outside the walls of that house. And in a case this complex, even the loudest voice for justice can become entangled in the shadows of speculation. Every murder is a message, whether it's rage, control, jealousy, or chaos. A killing says something. But what if it wasn't just about the people inside the house? What if it was about someone outside of it? As speculation swirled following the arrest of Bryan Kohberger, some began to ask a different kind of question, one that challenges not just who committed the murders, but why. Not personal, not random, but strategic. A warning, a punishment, a retaliatory act. In that light, the theory shifts from crime of passion to message sent. Some believe the victims, particularly Kaylee and Madison, may have been targeted not because of their own actions, but because of who they were connected to. Maybe a family member, a friend, a debt owed, a betrayal made. We've already explored the theory involving Steve Goncalves and the whispers about a supposed drug debt. But there are broader theories too, about university students entangled in things bigger than parties and finals. Was there pressure on someone to stay silent? Was something witnessed, reported, or threatened? And if the murders were meant to be a message to someone else, what would that message be? And more chillingly, did it work? Let's look at the facts. There was no clear attempt to hide the bodies. The scene was brutal, but deliberate. The suspect left behind a knife sheath. Was that a signature or a slip? And the 911 call came hours later, with no immediate urgency or mention of blood. That delay, that calm. To some it suggests a clean-up. To others, trauma. But in the mind of a theorist, it could also suggest that the act had already achieved its goal. That whoever did this wasn't afraid to be discovered, because the point wasn't to escape. It was to deliver a message. Loud, final, and irrevocable. Of course, we must emphasize, there is no confirmed motive linked to retaliation. No public evidence of threats. No charges beyond the single suspect. But this theory lives in the undercurrent of unanswered questions. It lives in the fact that nothing was stolen, that no one screamed loud enough to be heard, that 4 lives were taken and not a single clear motive has emerged. It asks us to consider whether this was less about emotion and more about impact. A killing not just of people, but of peace. Because if this was a message, then it wasn't just for the victims. It was for all of us. When a crime feels too calculated, too precise, too silent, people begin to ask darker questions. And in the case of the Idaho 4, one theory has emerged from the outer fringes of online disclosure. The possibility of ritual, of symbolism, of something cult-like. It's a theory that, at first, sounds extreme, sensational, uncomfortable. But it exists for a reason. So let's look at why. The killings were brutal, but specific. Each victim stabbed with a blade, with no signs of essay, no items stolen, and nothing overly chaotic left behind. 2 victims on the 3rd floor, 2 on the 2nd, and the 1st floor left untouched. Some have described the positioning of the bodies as methodical, even deliberate. Kaylee and Madison were found together in the same bed on the top floor. Ethan and Zan were found close together. The suspect left behind a knife sheath, marked with a military branding, a single male DNA profile. No blood trail, no screaming neighbours, no fingerprints, no bloody shoe prints, and no known accomplices. To some, this appears to be a solo attack. To others, it feels coordinated. Too clean, too confident, and too silent. From these questions, a new theory began to form, one that speaks to ritual, not just rage. Some have suggested that the crime may have involved elements of symbolic violence, that the killer may have followed a structured method, that this wasn't just about murder, but about meaning. Speculation has even extended to whispers of cult activity, unverified claims of strange gatherings in wooded areas, of secret social groups known to the university scene, and of rituals practiced away from the public eye. There's no confirmed connection between these rumours and the victims, no physical evidence tying the crime to any known cult or ritualistic practice. No symbols, no writings, no candles, robes, or carvings. But that absence of evidence hasn't stopped the theory from growing, because when something this violent happens without explanation, people begin to look beyond logic. They ask, was this a symbolic act? Was it a reenactment of something? Was someone trying to make a statement to a group or to themselves? The theory has roots in psychology too. Some serial killers have displayed ritualistic behavior in their killings, arranging victims, selecting symbolic dates, or leaving tokens behind. Bryan Kohberger studied criminology. He had an interest in serial offenders. According to an NBC report, Kohberger had been researching Ted Bundy around the time of the murders. This has led some to question whether this crime was inspired by others, or by the desire to become something more than just a suspect. A symbol, a myth, a message cloaked in murder. We must be clear, this is only a theory. It's not grounded in court filings or public fact, but it exists because something about this case still feels unfinished, unexplained, and unnaturally quiet. And in the absence of clarity, the mind fills in darkness. Whether the crime was ritualistic or not, the ritual that followed, of silence, fear, and speculation, has taken on a life of its own. And maybe that's the point. Because if this was a ritual, it worked. It changed everything. It's easy to focus on the names we know. Kaylee, Madison, Ethan, Xana, Dylan, Bethany. But what about the names we don't? Because sometimes the most important part of a story is who is missing from it. On the night of November the 12th, the residents of 1122 King Road were not all in for a quiet night. It was a weekend, there were parties, there was movement, there were friends coming and going, just like every other night in a college town. Ethan Chapin wasn't a resident. He was staying the night with Xana. Kaylee had recently moved out, but returned that weekend to show off a new car and spend time with Madison. Bethany Funk was present that night, as was Dylan Mortensen. Both survived. But here's the question. Was anyone else there? Was there a guest who left early, or a friend who stayed late? Maybe someone who dropped by unannounced, or never made their presence known. College houses are open spaces. Friends of friends, casual acquaintances, people come and go. And yet, the official narrative has kept the list short. 6 people in the house, 4 murdered, 2 unharmed. But not everyone is convinced it ends there. Rumours have circulated that someone else may have stayed over, that others arrived early in the morning, before police, but never became part of the public record. Some theorists suggest that a guest was in the house that night, perhaps on the first floor, perhaps asleep, perhaps afraid. Others believe someone could have slipped in after the murders to help clean or cover up something. It's not just about who was invited, it's about who was expected, who showed up anyway, and who left before the world realized what had happened. The demolition of the house makes this harder to confirm. No opportunity for new evidence, no chance to revisit overlooked traces. It leaves us asking, was the house truly locked down from the start? Did law enforcement identify every footprint, every fingerprint, every trace? Or were there quiet exits that slipped beneath the radar? In most cases, the question is, who did it? In this one, we must also ask, who else was there, and why haven't we heard from them? In the digital age, our phones never stop talking. They track us, they ping towers, they log every text, every call, every moment of movement. So in a house filled with young students, people who lived their lives online, why did the digital trail go so quiet at the moment it mattered most? From what we know, Unaccounted was using a phone shortly before the attack. We know she even received a DoorDash delivery. Some reports suggest she may have been awake, possibly even defending herself at around 4 a.m. But beyond that, a stillness. No texts, no panicked calls, no last-minute voice messages. Nothing posted, nothing sent. For young people, and not one digital cry for help. Even more curiously, there's little mention of what happened on the devices after the murders. Were any phones moved from their original positions? Were any apps opened? Was anything deleted? Law enforcement has not publicly shared the full contents of the victims' phones, and if someone else was present that night, someone moving through the house after the attack, what did they see? What did they touch? Could a killer have picked up a phone, read a message, or wiped it clean? Could someone have deliberately removed evidence, or left behind digital breadcrumbs they hoped would never be found? There's also the matter of the surviving roommates. We know their phones were in use that night, but have they been forensically examined? We know messages were sent, but were calls made? And if so, what did they say? These are questions the public hasn't been allowed to fully explore, because much of the digital evidence remains sealed. But the silence is deafening. In a crime this violent, you expect chaos. You expect noise. You expect someone, anyone, to leave a trace. But the phones didn't speak, which leaves us with two unsettling possibilities. Either the victims never had time to react, or someone made sure the devices never got the chance. In most crimes, digital trails reveal panic. Here, they reveal nothing. And in that nothingness, a new kind of fear begins. In today's world, secrets don't just hide in silence. They hide in screens, behind usernames, behind private messages, behind posts deleted too quickly to trace. And in the case of the Idaho 4, there's a growing belief that some pieces of this story may not live in the physical world, but in the digital shadows. Because if no one was seen entering the house, what if someone was already inside their lives, watching from a distance, lurking in the background of social media? In the weeks following the murders, Reddit threads, TikTok videos, and Discord forums lit up with speculation that someone close to the victims, maybe even involved in the crime, had left cryptic posts online. Posts that referenced timelines, that seemed to know unreleased details, that made odd, almost boastful comments before the public even had the facts. One now deleted Discord account reportedly described aspects of the crime scene that were not publicly known at the time. Other anonymous users hinted that the killer had a motive tied to humiliation. One claimed they were warned, and another said, "You'll understand when it all comes out." Were these just trolls, keyboard fantasists seeking attention? Or were some of these posts authentic whispers from someone closer to the truth? The FBI and local authorities have never confirmed if any digital accounts have been tied to the case, but that hasn't stopped online sleuths from building their own maps, linking Reddit usernames to friends of friends, tracking TikTok comments made by possible classmates, and screenshotting every post that vanished too quickly to explain. Then there's a possibility that someone helped digitally, even without being physically involved. A fake alibi suggested, a message intercepted or delayed, a conversation erased. In an age where your phone knows where you've been, or who you're with, and what you've said, digital evidence isn't just metadata, it's motive, it's method, it's memory. And yet, very little has been shared about the victims' online interactions in the days, or even hours before their deaths. Were there warning signs in DMs? Was someone blocked, ignored, or threatened? Did a digital interaction escalate into something physical? We may never know. But in the silence of those phones, and in the shadows of deleted posts, lies another theory. That someone else, maybe more than one, was involved in this crime from a distance. Not through blood, but through influence. And in the world we live in today, that's all it takes. It's a question no one wants to ask out loud. The question that lingers behind every other theory. Was someone else inside the house and never found? By the morning of November the 13th, 4 students lay dead. 2 others, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, had survived. The official story, as we know it, places a single intruder inside the home, moving floor to floor, killing silently before vanishing into the night. But that story is built around one suspect, one knife, one path in and one path out. So here's what we have to consider. What if that wasn't the whole truth? College homes are often revolving doors. Friends stay overnight, guests stay unannounced, especially on weekends, especially after parties. Could someone else have been inside 1122 King Road that night? Someone unrelated to the murders, or someone too afraid to come forward? There are several reasons this question still matters. First, the timing. Xana Knodel is believed to have been awake during the attack, using her phone, possibly fighting back. Would she have done that quietly? Would she have not called out for help if she knew someone else was nearby? Second, the survivors. It was Dylan Mortensen who reportedly saw a masked figure, clad in black, walking past her towards the sliding glass door. She returned to her room and locked the door. But what if someone else was already in the house before the killer arrived? A friend sleeping on the couch, someone in the basement, someone who slipped away before police ever arrived. We know friends were called before 911. We know at least one additional person was present by the time help was summoned. We know the crime scene wasn't secured for hours. Could someone have left quietly during that chaos? Third, the physical layout. The house had multiple entry points, a sliding door, a front door, and at least one lower level entrance. It was possible to come and go without being heard. And last, the silence. No screams heard by neighbors, no frantic calls made during the killings, just silence. And later, a vague 911 call about someone being passed out. If someone else had been in the house, even if they weren't involved, would they have known what happened? Would they have panicked or tried to pretend they weren't there at all? It's a terrifying thought, because it means we may never truly know how many people were inside that house when 4 others died. And if someone else was there and chose silence over truth, then they've been walking free this entire time. 1122 King Road is gone now. The walls that once held secrets, the stairs that echoed with footfall, the doors that may or may not have been locked. All of it flattened under an excavator's weight, reduced to rubble, removed from memory. But before that destruction, the house was something else entirely. It was a crime scene, a timeline frozen in space. It held the victims, it held the survivors, it held the evidence, both seen and missed. And now, it holds nothing. The decision to demolish the house was made months after the murders. University officials stated it was meant to help the community heal, to remove a painful visual scar and allow the neighborhood to begin again. But for many, the demolition felt like a door slamming shut, a door to answers that may never come. Because in the physical space of a crime scene, there are always details that only emerge with time. A footprint in an overlooked corner, a hair caught behind drywall, a blood pattern only visible under a certain light. Could the house have given us more? Could investigators have missed something they'd never have a second chance to find? And more importantly, should the house have been preserved until after the trial? Bryan Kohberger's legal team had time to examine the scene, and they did. But once destroyed, no defense expert, no jury, no independent analyst would ever see the house in its true form again. If someone else had been in that house, hidden in a closet, curled in a basement corridor, slipping out a door after the attack, would the house have held a clue? A scent? A stain? A shadow of movement? It's impossible to say, but with the house gone, those possibilities are buried. And for the families, for the public, for the pursuit of full understanding, the demolition didn't just remove a structure, It erased a stage, one where the final scene had played out, and where silence fell far too soon. Some see that as mercy, others as a mistake. But either way, 1122 King Road can no longer answer us, and that means we must now find truth in what remains. From the moment this case became public, we've been told the same thing. One man, one weapon, one night. And maybe that's exactly what happened. But what if it wasn't? What if the silence wasn't just shock, but strategy? What if the confusion wasn't just trauma, but control? What if there was someone else inside the room, in the shadows, in the story we haven't been allowed to hear? The possibility of another player in the Idaho 4 case isn't just a wild theory born from internet obsession. It's a reaction to the gaps. A vague 911 call. Hours of the day. A demolished crime scene. Posts that vanished. Names that were never mentioned publicly. People who were close but never questioned. This episode has explored those possibilities. With care, with evidence, and with restraint. We looked at the Sigma Chi party, the rumours of uninvited guests, the silence of the phones, the shadows of social media, the theories involving retaliation, ritual, and misdirection. We examined whispers, timelines, and the now vanished walls that might have held answers. And through it all, we haven't accused. We've asked, could there have been someone else? Not instead of Bryan Kohberger, but maybe alongside him. Maybe before him, maybe after him. Because even if Kohberger is guilty, even if he acted alone, there may still be people who knew, who saw, who heard, who left and stayed quiet. And if those people exist, then they are part of this story too. The ones not in the courtroom, not in the affidavits, but maybe in the margins. Justice requires clarity, but this case has been built in fragments. Some sealed, some buried, some never found at all. And so we ask, not to convict, not to deflect, but to remember. The truth is rarely simple, and sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one we never see. In this episode, we didn't point fingers. We asked questions. We walked through doorways no longer standing. We revisited timelines blurred by grief and speculation. We explored theories that some are afraid to say out loud, because they suggest this case may be more than a single act of violence. It may be something else entirely. If even one person knew what was coming, if even one person helped cover the truth, if even one voice stayed silent while 4 others were silenced forever, then justice isn't done yet. In this special investigation, we've followed the shadows, from fraternities to social media, from basements to burner phones, from grief-stricken families to theories of revenge, ritual, and retaliation. And what we've found isn't proof, it's possibility. Because until every voice is heard, every lead is chased, until every silence is accounted for, this case remains incomplete. With that, we conclude this episode of the Idaho 4, Theories Beyond the Official Narrative. If this episode gave you something to think about, if it helped you view this case in a wider lens, please like, comment, and subscribe to the Silent Casebook. Turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter. We're releasing new episodes every 2 days until we bring this special series to a close.